Hello there. This is Mama Mary, the Soul Diva, connecting with you from across the Golden Veil. Thank you for tuning in to Wayne and I through cryptic frequencies as we raise the vibration of the universe one pulse at a time.
Be careful not to offend, judge, or disrespect the noisy dead. Don't taunt, tease, or threaten, and never challenge or dare spirits of the dead. Our dealings are not with human flesh and bone, but rather with an essence that opposes all logic and even defies basic law of nature, like time and space. Prepare yourself by putting on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. Because you just never know. Welcome to Cryptic Frequencies, a video podcast dedicated to exploring the mysterious. I'm your ghost hunting host, Wayne Preston Curtis Thomas. Please keep an open mind about things that you might not easily believe, even things like vampires, as we delve deep into the obscure. On this episode of Cryptic Frequencies, we're pleased to welcome Todd Clements, author, Mackinac Island historian, paranormal researcher, and perpetual paranormal investigator. But before we get into the haunts of Mackinac, let's meet the co-host and my friend, a light to my path, Mama Mary Bassett, our producer.
Hi everyone, this is Mama Mary, the Soul Diva. How's everybody doing? Our guest today is all about one of my favorite places. So behind me I have what it looks like in Christmas, because I was curious of what it looks like during the winter time, because who knows, because there's not a whole lot of people that are brave enough to go there during the winter. So Todd, I'm looking forward to this. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
It's great to tornado bells going off. I apologize for the tornado bells going off in the background. I guess it's 1 o'clock.
Oh. So you got here on short notice, but with good reason. I wrote an article on you, and apparently...
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, apparently it wasn't exactly accurate. And I know one person read it, because you got back to me right away and said, you know, that story probably isn't true. So we'll talk about that tonight.
It's a long story. Yeah, I'll tell you about it when you're ready.
Yeah, we'll talk about it today. We'll talk about that, but we got a lot of other things to talk about, because like I said, you're an author of these 2 books.
And you've got them both.
Oh yeah.
Second one actually ran out last year, and it's going to reprinting with the whole COVID shutdown. Most of last summer wasn't available. So you're lucky to have it.
Oh yeah, I'm lucky to have it. And anyone that's gone to Mackinac Island needs to pick these books up, because the descriptions, you get pictures, maps, take you right to these haunted locations. And in book 1 is kind of a lesson on ghost hunting.
Yep.
So yeah, so you learn some of the basics by just picking this book up, but you can go right to the address of these, and there's several haunted locations. And I like the rating system. Maybe you could talk about your rating system. There's your 3-star ratings.
Yeah. Sure. I came up with it, before the first book, when I was writing it, I was like, some places, you know how ghost stories go. Oh yeah, there's a place that allegedly has a ghost, but no one knows for sure, and the stories are pretty far and few between. And if that was the case, it was like a 1. There's not a lot about it. There's a few stories, but not volumes of ghost stories from people. A 2 would be a little more. A 3 would be we had more stories than we could include in the book. There was just so many ghost stories from that location. The other one I did was the how recent the activity has been. A 3, it's ongoing. It's right now. People are reporting things today, all the time. 1, it may be a story that has been passed down from generation to generation, but no one's seen anything in a while or had it happen for a while. 2 is somewhere in between, obviously, like that. What the activity is doing. A 3 would be you're seeing apparitions, objects are moving. A 1 would be you might have a weird smell or think you saw something, but you didn't actually see it like head on. You saw it out of the corner of your eye, or just minor paranormal activity. And 2 is obviously somewhere in between, a little bit of both, but not quite a ton of each.
Yeah, you get a lot of information just by looking at however you coded it. So you want to go to the places, at least I would.
3 stars, yeah, the ones that are boom, 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 yeah, go to those ones if you want to get a shot at something. The 1-star ones, they might be an interesting place, but you probably are going to be a little bit less likely to see or hear anything going on.
So often, I think, especially with the residual haunting, it's like right person, right place, right time. It's a matter of time.
It is. We do have a few of those up on the island. One is, it's in the second book, and that one is a 3. It's a 3-star. It's been seen at least once a summer. Somebody sees this woman somewhere walking around. A lot of people confused her for someone being a state park worker in costume. They don't know why she's wearing Victorian clothes, but she is.
Oh,
and some people have seen her vanish before their eyes or appear before their eyes. She is a full-bodied apparition all the way down to the ground. She hums music. She looks like a real person. And there's audio to her. So you can hear her and see her. That's why I think people think it's a real person.
You think that's a residual?
I do believe it's a residual because every sighting is exactly the same route that she moves through. She doesn't interact with anybody. She doesn't interact with anything physical. She just does the same thing, same song every single time. She's a happy haunt. She's not sad. It was actually a residual from a good thing. We think it was the day she got engaged to a guy she fell in love with. Just based on putting the pieces of the puzzle together, where she's leaving, where she's going, the day that it was, the time. We put everything together and figured out we're pretty sure she saw a silent film. It was called Hearts and Flowers at the theater, which is now the Haunted Theater on Mackinac. But it used to do silent movies. We think she saw a silent movie, Hearts and Flowers, which is very popular. The year she got engaged, it would have played on the island. She was whistling the theme song, Hearts and Flowers, or humming it. And she was going from the theater to her house. And her route never changes. So we're pretty sure that was the day she got engaged to the man she fell in love with.
Nice. And then you
Yep.
describe the difference between residual and an intelligent haunting in your book, in that first book. Talk about
Right.
that. And the same terms that I use, so I liked it just because residual and intelligent or period clothing kind of gives it away for these historical haunts, I think.
Usually. On the island, we have 2 times a year. Well, we have one time of the year where there are Victorian clothes people all over the place where they do the Somewhere in Time weekend. They walk around and they're in the same clothes you would get in.
Are you making reference to the movie that they did?
Yeah. They do a annual get together. Usually a few hundred people show up. They dress in the clothes of the time. They sometimes they have celebrities. Jane Seymour's been there. They've all the people in the movie have been there at least once since the movie came out. I think it was 1979. It came out. Pretty sure. They've all shown up. But Jane Seymour's been there several times. Christopher Plummer's been there several times. Christopher Reeve's only been there, I think, once, maybe twice. Then, of course, Plummer just passed away.
Yeah.
So he, at least physically, he won't be back. Maybe he'll come back in spirit.
I know. Mary, did you see the movie?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should check
You'll
that.
love it or you'll hate it.
Yeah, it's a love
That's
story.
pretty much the consensus. It's a science fiction love story,
Yeah.
but it's not so much science fiction, it's time travel. It's kind of like, it's not like space, it's like science fiction going backwards in time.
Sounds interesting, though.
Yeah, you need to check that out. What's the title again?
Somewhere in Time.
Right. And you also had some Ghostbusters or Ghost Team, I think, that did a TV thing from the.
Yep,
was
we
it
had
Mission Point?
Taps did Mission Point for the TV show Ghost Hunters. That was fun. I got to be on that one, which was always fun. You realize the behind the scenes of how long it takes just to do a 1 hour episode of a TV show, and it's just like it's a solid week of every day doing something, filming. Something didn't turn out right, we got to redo that, or like turning the lights out like they do on their show. Yeah, that takes a while to do that and get it lined up right to turn lights out, because somebody will do it wrong.
Yeah, I imagine. I'm wondering what your average day is like on the island. Do you have like your favorite places that you go to? Do you make yourself breakfast, or you got a place that you go for coffee, or what's it like?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Average day, it depends on whether I work the night before or how late. If we're doing any investigating, obviously, we stay up pretty late. So my mornings sometimes start a little late. Depends on what we do the night before. But I stay in like basically a guest house up on one of the bluffs, which is great because when the owners aren't there or they don't have someone visiting, we get to stay in the main house, which is 9 bedrooms. I don't even know how many bathrooms. It's like 8,000 square foot on the bluff. It's amazing house. But yeah, I'll get up and I'll have some cereal, orange juice. I don't drink my coffee first thing in the morning because, well, my stomach hates me when I do it. I have to wait like an hour before I can. And I usually will walk into town. It's about a 2 mile and a half, 2 mile walk to town. And Lucky Bean is my go-to coffee house. One of my friends owns that. And then it just, well, sometimes I'll go for hikes, research. I'm always researching things, historical, paranormal. Whenever I'm out and about, going somewhere, if you see me with my backpack or my satchel bag, I'm probably working. Whether it's going through archives, hiking the woods, finding unusual things, looking for legends, looking for caves. There's caves on the island that no one knows where they are.
Wow.
I found a couple of them. One cave caves were a big thing back in like the 1930s on the island. And somebody tried to document all the caves on the island. Some of them are nothing more than a scoop of a rock out of a hill. But there are some there's one that I haven't found that I'm looking for still. It's supposedly a hole in the ground and you can hear running water down really deep in it, but I haven't found that one yet. That was in an old newspaper article from the 1930s. I have found the real skull cave. The one you see on the carriage tours, a lot of people say that's not the actual skull cave, where a guy who was running from Native Americans who were killing a bunch of local residents on the island, or not on the island, but on the mainland. He ran to Mackinac Island, hid in the cave. One of his friends who was a Native American told him to run because they're coming for the settlement. They're coming for the British settlement that was there at the time. And they slaughtered almost everybody there. And he was on the island, ran in the woods, found a cave, went to sleep, was well hidden, woke up in the morning. The floor of the cave was covered in bones. That's why it was called Skull Cave. Human remains, animal remains, all different types of remains. And his description doesn't fit the cave they call Skull Cave. His description was a very small opening, 2 caverns, and very well hidden. The skull cave that you see, that's on all the maps and all that, it's a big opening. It's not very deep, and it's not well hidden.
Okay.
So I talked to a guy who is another island historian who knows a lot about the myths and the legends, just like I do. He's off the island now, but I've kind of filled his shoes. And it's off of a trail in the middle of nowhere. He said these two trails meet, Murray Trail, and I can't remember the name of the other one off the top of my head because there's a lot of trails that I can't remember all the names, but I know where they are. Where they meet, if the two trails are pointing one direction, where they meet, turn around and go back in the woods about 25 yards. Watch your step, and you'll find a small opening in the ground. That's the real Skull Cave. Somebody put a boulder in front of the opening about 5 years ago, so it's, I would say, a 1,000-pound boulder. I think the state park probably did it because you could go in there. Your cell phone dies immediately. As soon as you go in there, you have no cell signal. And it's not big, but it's big enough for someone to hide out in for a night. It's like they described, hard to find. 2 chambers. Second chamber was a little bit bigger than the first chamber. Really wet. Wouldn't suggest doing it. Really nasty. A lot of like goo. I came out of there. I had to change my clothes.
Yeah.
It was bad.
No, this is
Didn't
why
see any bones. No bones though. But
This is
then again, the state park probably took them.
this is why I described you as perpetual paranormal investigator. I think while you're on the island, yeah, I don't know if I think I would probably wear a camera right on my head or something.
If I did, I have some footage.
Yeah.
Now, I don't see things that often. And on investigation, I mean, I've investigated on the island so many times. You have seen a lot, but it's not like every summer or every day I'm seeing something. It's really, if I'm not ghost hunting, there's a few plot spots. You got a 70% chance of catching something, whether it's footsteps, a voice, EVP. We get a lot of EVPs in some places, some better than others, and occasionally, I mean, seen 5 apparitions. 2 are shadow people. I don't know if people would consider those apparitions, but they're humanoid in their form. Yeah, so I mean, I have seen some things, but I've also been doing this since I was 12 years old, since I was a kid. So back in Ireland, the most recent one I've seen was probably Harvey, who's one of the famous ghosts at Mission Point. He was standing right next to me. I mean, literally right next to me. He had a striped shirt on, had blonde hair, buzz cut, and when I looked right at him, he disappeared right there. When I started looking, you could only see him in your peripheral vision. You couldn't see him straight on.
Now this is Mission Point apparition.
Is it yep, it's at the theater at Mission Point. And he was actually the ghost I saw when I was 12 years old, which got me into the whole paranormal when I was a kid because when I was 12. And I remember it very vividly. It was like July, middle of the day, outside by the pool. I look up at the bluffs. There's a man standing there. And then all of a sudden, I turn to my mom. I go, look, there's the guy up there. I thought he was going to jump. I didn't know what he was doing. He's right on the edge of one of these bluffs. There's 100-foot high plus bluffs on the island, which are crazy. You don't climb them. You shouldn't climb them. Let's just put it that way. And he's standing right at the edge. And I turned to my mom. I was 12 years old. I go, Mom, look. And he was gone. There was nowhere he could have gone unless he jumped. So, of course, there's nobody. There's no body. There's no person at the bottom of the bluff you could see. And my brother and I went up there later to see how someone could get out of eyesight that fast. It was impossible. It was a ledge with another ledge behind it that was probably 6 to 8 feet tall. You'd have to jump like 6. You'd have to be able to jump up like that 6 to 8 feet to get out of it, being able to be seen. And I was like, and he wasn't solid too, so that kind of tipped me off that something wasn't right. He was
I included Harvey
semi-transparent.
in the article that I wrote on you and Mackinac Island. it seems like they're not exactly sure whether it was a suicide or whether he was murdered.
The official records say it's a suicide, but the police records have some information in them. And we had a state trooper. We talked to him about it, and he said, "Yeah, this looks like it was just trying to make a case close really quick. It could be a murder. It doesn't look like a suicide." He pointed out one part in the police report, the state police report, where fragments of the skull were found in separate directions at a distance of 15 feet or more. And he said, if you were to shoot yourself, and this is, he's with a rifle, they found the rifle. If you were to shoot yourself in the head point blank with a rifle, first off, it's not easy, but you can do it.
Right.
It can be done. But he said the fact the skull fragments were in two separate directions, opposite directions. Well, actually, they weren't even opposite. They were like, one went off to like, I think they describe it by direction. I think one went off to the northwest and the other went off to the south. It wasn't like straight line. It was like at angles. He said the only way you could do that is if you fire two shots. So he said, not likely if you shot yourself in the head, you'd be able to pick up the gun and do it again.
Kennedy, somebody was hiding. Maybe there was more than one shooter. I don't.
We think. I mean, of course, it's ruled a suicide, but we think it was a lovers' quarrel type thing. We don't know for sure, but apparently he was infatuated with a girl. We've found some people who've told us that, and he wanted to marry this girl. This girl barely knew him, and he actually proposed to her. She turned him down, and within weeks he went missing. The girl had a boyfriend. So we wonder who is the boyfriend. We've never gotten names on the girlfriend or the boyfriend. We just know they're the girl and the boy that were involved with it. Did he take him out to a bar? Did he take him off in the woods? Did he shoot him? Because he was after his girlfriend. The guy was obsessed. But we don't know for sure. The only way we'll ever know is if he actually gives us the information. He's helped us. We've got EVPs from him over the years. One was not suicide.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't do it. At one point, we didn't have the police. Before we had the police report, we didn't know how he died. In the first book, it talks about him jumping off the bluff. We found out later that isn't how it happened. When we did find out before the police report, we did have an EVP that said rifle. It was a rifle. And it was a rifle. And not suicide. Didn't do it. Strange little EVPs before we got all the information that we were like, yeah, okay, this is making sense now. Maybe he didn't kill himself. Maybe that's why he's haunting us, because he wants people to know he didn't kill himself.
Right. It sounds like you're putting some pieces together. That's
it's a process. You do get a lot of information that doesn't pan out. Sometimes you think you've got like a treasure trove of information, and it turns out that the sources are kind of not credible.
When you're out investigating, if you find some Native American artifact, are you able to keep it?
Nope. Unfortunately, we found a bone one time. We were looking for a cave on one of the bluffs. It's really difficult to get to. We found the cave, but we couldn't get to it because it was about 20 feet above where we were standing, and we got ropes and throw the rope at the top of the bluff, timed in tree, see if we could climb up to it. We just couldn't get the rope was a 100-foot rope. It didn't reach us. So that gives you an idea of the size of the bluffs. We couldn't get to this cave, so we just eventually said, we're done, we're not going to make it. The cave supposedly had char marks from fires from Native Americans, and didn't know what we would find. It'd probably been picked over by whoever or whatever. But we were coming down the hill, and it's pretty steep, rocky hill. So we're sliding on our butts and everything like that because it was too steep to kind of walk down. And I saw it looked like a weird rock. I grabbed it, looked at it. It was a spine, or not spine. It was a backbone. I thought it was maybe from like a cow or some other wild animal. It was big though, so it would have had to be a bear, cow. It's something bigger than your average raccoon. And I kept it just because I figured, who knows? So I take it to the state park, and one of the guys that was working at the state park looked at it. He said, "Yeah, this is Native American. This is a human bone." So I found a Native American backbone, uh, single, and they said it was at least 700 to 800 years old.
Oh, wow. Do you have
So
bear?
it's been there a long time. What's that?
Are there bear on the island?
They can be, but there aren't typically. And I don't remember what year it was, but it was, I would say 1940s was the last reported bear on the island. They found out there was a bear on the island. It had been spotted. Some hunters, they can't have a bear on the island. It's too dangerous.
Yeah.
Some hunters found it. They shot the bear. They realized it was a mama bear and she had one cub. So they actually kept the cub. It was very kind. It was sweet. And they turned it into a tourist attraction. Come see Cubby, Mackinac Island's black bear. And there's actually a room in one of the museums there, the Stewart House Museum, that is actually dedicated to Cubby the bear. There's books written about Cubby the bear. There's photos of Cubby the bear. So that was our bear on the island. We do have deer. I've seen deer. I've seen a coyote once out by the cemeteries. And then we have a lot of otters. Otters are not afraid to show themselves. Usually around sunset, just before sunset, sit by the water in downtown where all the people are and just watch. Eventually, you will see an otter playing around or eating. They float on their backs. They hit like clamshells and they start eating. One time I got lucky enough to see a mom with all her baby otters crossing the street. That was really cute. We had a beaver a few years ago, but nobody knows what happened to it. It just was gone one day. It was out by Mission Point, and every night again, you'd see him come out of the reeds and swim to his little beaver dam that he had in the middle of the water. So we had a beaver. It was the first beaver anyone's seen on the island in years, but then all of a sudden he was gone because I think someone got rid of him because he was destroying trees downtown. He was going after the trees.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Are they protected in any way? Any of the animals?
On the island,
right?
I don't think we have anything that's considered technically protected species. You're not allowed to hunt, but people will do it without anyone looking. And that's what the beaver was probably part of that.
80% of the island is state park, right?
Yep.
So that I think there's got to be some protection just for that. Like you say,
yeah.
You described the island as a huge cemetery or a Native American burial ground.
Which is originally, it was sacred land. It was their sort of the Garden of Eden to several different tribes. It was where their great god came to earth to visit and do whatever the great gods would do. There's a lot of stories about different spiritual entities in Mackinac Island with Native American mythology. So there is that. They taught man how to do agriculture, how to hunt, how to make weapons, how to make tools. Mackinac Island, there's a very rarely visited rock on the island. It's called Friendship Altar. And that's, I think it's in the second book. I'm pretty sure that story's in the second book about a spirit coming to a rock. He would stand on this one rock in the middle of the woods. That's where he taught everybody agriculture, make bows and arrows, spears. He taught mankind how to become civilized and be able to live off the land. Well, then men started fighting and there were wars. And he said, I'm not teaching you anymore. And I know so much more, but I'm not going to teach you another thing until you stop the wars. And he never came back because we're still having wars. But that is one of the visitors of the island. And the Island of the Dead, basically sacred ground. And they thought for people to be closer to the great Gitche Manitou, the great god, they would bury their dead on Mackinac Island. Now, at first, it was just the chiefs of the tribes, their families, holy men, medicine men, shamans, whatever you'd like to call them, the highest of the tribe would be buried on Mackinac Island. Well, they weren't too far off from the way people are now. If somebody's doing something and they're a famous or a big person or important person, well, everybody wants to try it to do the same thing. So it became a trend that people would start burying their dead on Mackinac so they'd be closer to their great god. And they started burying people everywhere. The rule of thumb is if you can dig deep enough to bury someone, it's already taken. So, I mean, you hear stories of them doing construction on the island, digging a basement or doing pipe work. They come across bones all the time. Now, until recently, they would just take them and throw them in the lake. They just toss them aside. They had no respect for any of the bones or anything they found. It was just like, it's in the way, throw it away. Now they try to keep it quiet sometimes because they know if they find something, the archaeologists are going to come in, they're going to shut down their construction project, and they're going to find out what's going on. Is there anything here? Is there any jewelry? They want to get all the information on it. So sometimes they keep it hush hush. I've heard a few stories of that. And then where we actually have our tour company based out of one of the hotels downtown, Bicycle Street Inn, they put a basement in when they built the building. There was at least 12 sets of human remains. Some were European descent, some were Native American descent. You can tell by which way the bones are facing. Native Americans always had the head pointing to the sky, so they would kind of be hunched down in a ball, but their head would be the highest point. Or European burials, you're laying down in a coffin, basically. So they knew by how they were laid out what they were. They found a little bit of both. Because it was just basically standard burials, they didn't find anything special about it. They didn't do an archaeological process of it. They collected the bones. The European bones were moved to the cemetery in the middle of the island, where they used to be a cemetery right by where they found them, but they moved most of the bodies, but not all of them.
Right.
They moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies. Poltergeist, right?
Yeah. That creates
and there's activity above where the cemetery used to be. Go figure.
Go figure.
But they think some of the bones, because it's really, really close to where the cemetery, over time, rainfall, erosion, might have shifted over towards where the back end of that basement, towards the front end was where they found the Native Americans, which would be closer to the shoreline. And the Native American bones are still at the police station waiting for the tribe up in the Sioux to come get them because they haven't gotten them yet. They're sitting in a box. And the European settlers were put in St. Anne's Cemetery. I've never seen where they put them. There's no marker for them, but they're somewhere in St. Anne's Cemetery in the middle of the island, which is where they moved the cemetery to. So there are bones everywhere. We call it the Island of the Dead because there's people buried everywhere on the island. The cemetery is not the only place. It's British.
I have a question, Todd.
Yeah.
Can you tell me anything about the drowning pool?
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one.
Okay. Well, we were pretty new to doing our walk tours. It was the second season of doing our walking tours, which are based off the books, but there's some things in there on the walking tours that aren't in the books. It's a little bit of give and take. We were told by two taxi drivers, separate times, about this drowning pool. We knew the water. We knew what it was. We knew where it was. It's out in front of Mission Point. It's like a really deep pond out in front of Mission Point. People can find it. It's very easy to find. Just walk the shoreline. You won't miss it. They told us that, and we knew some of their history was actually right, and some of their history wasn't right, but we didn't know it at the time because it's one of those, oh my gosh, it's such a great story. Wow. Oh yeah, it's a great story. So we are talking to them, and they're just like, yeah, you know that body of water out there? Because we were out in that area on a taxi because we had offices at Mission Point at the time. And we were taking a cabin to town because we were hauling some of our gear. And they said, yeah, that body of water back when the island was first being settled, around the time the fort was being built, and there were the British soldiers and the war, and the American soldiers, there were a lot of brothels, which we do know is true. There were brothels on the island. Primarily soldiers and fur traders would come and use the brothels. And they said, yeah, one of those brothels, the men were going there, and some of them were married and their wives on the island, and the wives showed up and said, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing here? Oh, you're a prostitute. We're married." And the men alleged, this is all made up, but the men said they're witches. They've bewitched us to come here. We came without our control. We're under their spell. So not too long, maybe about 70, 80 years after the Salem witch trial, something like that, they said, oh, well, we'll do what they did in Massachusetts. Let's tie rocks around their ankles and throw them into this deep pond out by Mission Point. If they float, we'll burn them. And if they sink and drown, well, they're innocent. May God rest their soul. 7 women got thrown in the water. 7 women drowned. The drowning pool. That's where the name came from. Now, we were just like, oh, wow, this is such a good story. We were looking for something to tell out that area of the tour. We're just like, let's use that. It sounds pretty cool. Just make sure we say it's a legend. We have no proof before we tell people this. Right. Now, that's what got dropped from every article, everywhere we ever talked about it. They never put that before it. It is pure speculation. It is a legend. We have nothing to back this up. But we have been told this story, and it's fun for them to hear that story, but there's no proof that it ever happened. So we did that story on the tour for maybe 2 or 3 seasons, and I caught up with, I was working on the second book at the time, so I wasn't really doing a lot with I eventually got to the drowning pool because that was going to be in the second book, and I started to do my homework on it to find out if there's any evidence, whatever. Paperwork, anything, nothing. I could find absolutely nothing on any of the witchcraft, any of this at all. There was nothing. And I went to the other state park historians, which are the ones who know more than I do, and they're like, no, this we've heard this story. It's told by taxi drivers for tourists. It's not true. There's nothing to back it up. Supposedly, the ghosts of the 7 women were haunting the water. And there's the ghost story to it. And occasionally they would come walk out of the water. You'd hear their footsteps. You'd see shadowy figures by the water, which is not untrue. And I'll get to that after I finish this. But so we found nothing. I mean, I went through historical documents. There's zero. Yes, there were brothels, but that's all we could find. Nothing about any executions or trials. Usually there'd be I'd find some evidence of it. And I did find evidence of one execution of a prostitute in the region. It was across the water in the city of St. Ignace. There was a Native American woman who was a prostitute, and under French rule, when it was French, the French had the area too. It was French, British, and American. The penalty for prostitution was death. They would kill a prostitute.
That's extreme.
She was found guilty. It's extreme, but they found her because the French were, I mean, super religious, super strict, and a prostitute, if she got caught, and it was obvious she got caught, I'm sure there were still people that were like probably like a judge who was with the prostitute. Oh, well, it's out in the open now. Now I have to kill you. So they executed her. Now we don't it doesn't say, it was only like a paragraph in an old history book that I've only found one copy anywhere of this history book. It was in Flint, Michigan. I had to hunt it down. It's the University of Michigan, Flint. No other library had this book. Nobody had it. Even the state park doesn't have this book. As it doesn't have a lot to do with Mackinac, but there is a section that talks about the French in Mackinac Island, in the Mackinac region. And that was all I could find about any prostitute ever being executed on the island. There was no talk of witchcraft. She was Native American. She could possibly be where they got the idea of witchcraft because they had their own religions. But Doesn't say how she died, but she could have been drowned. We don't know, but it was not done on the island. It was done in St. Ignace, and it was one woman. And could the story have blossomed from that? Yeah, it's a good story, but it is just a story.
Yeah.
That one doesn't have any. I couldn't find any proof of it. However, the drowning pool.
The drowning pool. Yeah, that was my big thing. I went off of your books and I found some other sources and I reported on the drowning pool in my article. And right now, I had 3 or 4 sources that are current.
Oh yeah.
One of them was my buddy.
Still talk about it.
Jojo
People still talk about it
from one of the radio stations here in Grand Rapids, WFG.
Okay.
He's one of them. Another radio station reported on it. One guy went there to the drowning pool with a camera, was looking underwater with his camera. So I believed it. And so I reported on it.
Oh yeah, it sounds like a plausible story. I mean, historically, yes, there were brothels.
Now,
Salem wasn't that far back in time. So the story, it's one of those stories where it seems to be right, but when you really have to dig into the history of it, can't find anything.
It's
can't
very
prove
sensational. In both your books, you have a disclaimer that you say it's for entertainment purposes only, and that they're true and accurate ghost stories, legend, and folklore. Now it's when these stories become rumor, myth, and complete fabrications that there's a problem. And I fell into.
Oh yeah. Well, the stories in the book are the stories that I personally feel have a lot of weight to them. I know the history is correct. The ghost stories have come from multiple sources, reliable sources, people who don't know each other. Like I'll get a story at, say, Pine Cottage. It's from staff that work there. It's from guests who have visited there. It's from other people who have worked, who've been there, and they've had things happen. Now these people don't know each other, and they're describing almost identical situations. They're different in little things like where they saw or what happened when they saw the apparitions or anything, but it's the same description of the attitude of the ghost, the clothing of the ghost, the locations, general locations. I mean, they're all in similar parts of the building where people see things. Other parts, there's never a report. Yeah, that's got some support to it. I investigated Pine Cottage. I had 2 things happen that were crazy. Don't ever ghost hunt alone, by the way, because 1, you don't have anybody to prove what happened, and 2, if you get into a situation, it's you and whoever's not there. You can't see, and that was what happened to me. It scared the hell out of me. I had an EVP. I had my microphones I use for recording EVPs are 360-degree headphone thing. So it's like using your own ears. It amplifies it while it's recording it, so you hear what it's recording. So if you ask a question, you hear it right then and there if there's an answer. It was right behind me, and the only thing behind me was a fire escape door. And it was off season. The fire escape was one of those metal rickety, rackety ones that would make a ton of noise if you moved on it. And first thing, I was alone, and I asked, "Is there anyone here with me?" And I got the answer, "Behind you." It was a man's voice. I was just like, I don't want to turn around.
Yeah.
But I got as an investigator, I got to turn around. So I turn around, there's nobody there. I look out the fire escape door, I open it up, there's nobody on the fire escape. I step down on the fire escape. I don't trust that fire escape. I know they fixed it since then because they got a new owner, but it was like, is this gonna fall off the side of the building? Because it was really like an old fire escape, and there was nobody around. I checked, there was a bedroom and a bathroom nearby, which was basically on the sides of me, not behind me. I went there, I looked all over there's nobody there. There was nobody there. I was the only person on the floor of the building at the time too. Everybody else was on floors above or below me because we didn't have a lot of people, so we split up and we had like 4 or 5 people. It's a 4-story building with the main floor. So we were all split up. There's nobody there. It was just me and the guy behind me. So That was the first, and a rocking chair rocked on its own. We all saw that. And there's a ghost of a little girl who sits in a rocking chair and rocks. We didn't see her, but the rocking chair moved.
I think confirmation comes when you can get these things to repeat.
Yep. Yeah, and Pine Cottage is it's pretty reliable as far as too many stories. And like I say, that's how I get the stories that go in the book. If it's not in the book, it's either one we're researching and we might be sharing it on the tour a little bit because we're researching it, which also helps us because sometimes somebody will be on the tour, we'll start telling the story, they'll be like, that happened to me. That happened to me. We're like, boom, another witness supporting it.
Right.
But the drowning pool does have paranormal activity. It's
Really?
not super active. We think we know who it is, but we haven't got a name yet. And until we get the name and date that the guy died, I don't want to really push it. But we know that a local on the island has lived there their whole lives. And they said in the 1980s, there was a big beer drinking party out at the drowning pool. And everybody was drunk, everybody was partying, and a guy supposedly jumped in there and no one noticed. And he got tangled up in seaweed and drowned, died there. Nobody knew about it until later that he was underwater and had passed away. We think that's who's haunting it. I've heard the footsteps, and I've seen the water move in ways that shouldn't naturally move.
Huh.
Splashing, like somebody's. It looks like what a fish would do. Excuse me. What a fish would do if you're pulling it up on a line and you got it right at the surface and it's just going nuts, flapping and splashing. We didn't see any fish. I've only seen it there like little minnows. But it would have been probably pretty good sized bass or bigger. It was too big to be in that pond. And we didn't see any fish. No one's ever pulled a big fish out of there. So, but it kind of looked similar, but it was moving while it was doing it. And it was moving away from us. So we don't know if that was paranormal or not. But the rocks, when I heard those rocks, there's lots of rocks on the island. They're everywhere. On every shoreline, it's all rock. And if you ever walk on like gravel, it makes a certain sound. It was me and two other people. And we were sitting by the drowning pool, trying to see if we could find anything. And we heard footsteps coming up behind us on the rocks. It was pretty clear. It was like the crunchy sound of rocks. And we're all looking, turning around. We can't see anything. There's nobody there, but it was definitely footsteps on these rocks. So we think it's the guy who drowned there, but we're still trying to find out who he actually was.
You can go to the drowning pool. You may see something, but probably not 7 witches because you can't find any reference to witches at all. There are some references to prostitution and to brothels, but after you told me that it was not true, I went back and researched some more. I found an article where they actually quoted you directly.
Yeah, I know. And they left out part of what I said.
I know,
This
and it was
is legend.
I was waiting. Where's the end of it? Where's the part where you say no, this isn't true? Because then they're saying, well, this is fake news, but they were saying even Harvey. I mean, they were putting doubt into everything that Harvey was true and other things.
I know Harvey's real name. I know where he lived. I know why he was at the school. I know how he got in trouble with the police. I know so much about that guy. It's ridiculous. And yes, he is 100% a real person, true story. How he died is really the mystery, and whether or not you believe there's a ghost or not, that's about it. But we know everything about Harvey. We know his real name. His name's not Harvey. We know a lot about him. We know it's a true story what happened with him. We just don't know if it was suicide or murder.
You know, a big thing with Mackinac Island is the pronunciation. I don't know if you can read. Can you read my ad or not? Mackinac.
Yeah, it's Mackinac City.
But it's spelt differently.
Yep.
Because
Mackinac,
if you look at it, it looks like Mackinac. And if you're
and believe me, we hear that all the time. It is not Mackinac.
No,
It looks like it,
it
but
sure does.
the difference is, how does an English British person say it, spell it, versus a French person say it, spell it. Both are pronounced Mackinac, but the British version has a W, which makes sense.
Like
English
this,
W,
Mackinac City.
Mackinac, aw. The French has a C, which is silent. They make it difficult. So it's still Mackinac, but it looks like Mackinac.
It would be bad enough for people visiting just with all the Native American names.
Oh,
I
yeah.
couldn't pronounce
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them changed their names to more British or French names just for, they try to convert a lot of Native Americans to European standards up there. So some of them have Native American names, but most of them have an English or French version of their name too. Some of them are still hard to pronounce, the French ones. There's Madeleine Lafavois,
Okay.
which basically it translates to the raspberry. She was a French Native American woman who was actually she was one of America's first female millionaires, self-made, mostly self-made. She took over her husband's business after he was shot by a Native American man over a bottle of whiskey. And she took over his fur trading company up there and ran an extremely profitable business better than he did. She made a better income than he did, and very giving person. She stayed at St. Anne's Church, that's on the island, from bankruptcy. She did Sunday schools, and her daughter was married to Benjamin Pierce, President of the United States. So she's connected to the president of the U.S., and she did it on her own. But why they called her the raspberry, I'm not sure. But for years, they had raspberry bushes by her too. And eventually they moved her tomb back into church. It used to be outside, but now it's back inside the church.
Do you have ghost hunting teams on the island?
Ghost hunting teams?
Teams.
Professional teams? Hobby amateur? Yeah, we get a few people who show up every now and then. There's a few that live on the island. We work with them too. But it's a hobby. It's just like they're interested in it, but it's not something that they're passionate about. Usually they'll join us for an investigation when we do it, because I've been doing it so long and I got all kinds of little toys they like to play with. We don't have a professional team. I'd say 50% of the island can't stand ghost hunting and ghosts and paranormal and all that hoo-ha. And, it's either the devil's work or it's all fake. It's not true, whatever. And then there's the people who are like, yeah, I've seen something, but don't tell anybody else on this island I've seen something, because they'll think I'm crazy. We're pretty much the team on the island. We've investigated a lot of places, not everywhere. Some places it's a lot hard to get in. Some places we've done it, we weren't supposed to, but we did it anyway. We just snuck around. That's how we did it in the beginning anyway. Most ghost hunters would sneak into abandoned buildings, things like that. That's how we did it in the beginning.
But you put
We've investigated.
No trespass.
What?
You say no trespassing
exactly.
in your book.
Oh yeah, do not trespass. Do not do what I did.
Get permission.
And I have get permission to go in first. And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, sure, why not? Other times they'll be like, are you serious? Get out of here.
Yeah, I know.
You're not going ghost hunting.
We don't want to hear that stuff.
We've never been able.
Sometimes I would let the
What's
police.
that?
I would let the police know if I was going to be in a building where they're not used to seeing flashlights in the middle of the night. I would let them know and get written permission.
The police. It's never really been the police that have been up there when we were somewhere we weren't supposed to be. Once it was a security guard.
Oh yeah.
And that was in our early days. We got away.
Yeah, you don't want to get shot.
No. What are you doing here? We're ghost hunting. Oh my. I'm gonna give you a trespassing ticket for ghost hunting.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Here's your ticket. But our early days, we just kind of did it. This is before the books were written, anything like that. We just went. We had dowsing rods. We had old cassette recorders. We had basically the analog version of a K2 meter, the tri-field mirrors and things like that. The old school equipment. We had Geiger counter at one time because we know what to. We just took anything that would read something in the environment we couldn't see. That's what
I'm glad you
but then
brought
we
that
did get
up, because I had dowsing rods. I wonder how old school and then some of the new apps that they have out now, if you've ever tried any of those.
I've tried the apps. I don't think they get the same read as a real dowsing rod would. There's a trick to dowsing rods that a lot of people don't completely understand them. First off, what I learned a long time ago was you can't physically touch the metal. You're not supposed to physically touch the actual metal. You're supposed to put pivot like pipes on the rods so that they will not you, but they will freely move on their own without your fingers rolling them or anything. Also, you're supposed to put your arms down so that you can't move them by moving too much. You're supposed to put like your hands down, your arms down on like a flat surface, a table or whatever, so that your hands are completely still. That's what I was taught a long time ago, how to properly use dowsing rods. Because if you have them in your arms, oh, you get fatigue in your muscle. Oh, this arm's going a little this. Oh, there it goes. You don't feel it, but your arms are constantly just little shifts and moves. But if you put them down on a flat surface with your hand down and hold it, you're a lot less likely to get like a false positive out of the rod moving. So, yeah, we used those for a while. We used to use them a lot more, but with all the tech, I know everybody says we've all gone so high tech, we got to get back to basics. But we used to use dowsing rods a lot.
My grandfather used willow stick to find water, dowsing like that.
It works. It works.
And then
they do work. Now, we used copper dowsing rods because they're so good with electrical flow.
You buy into the theory that ghosts give off an electrical magnetic charge?
I don't think they give it off. I think they are an electrical charge. Yeah. They're a collection of electricity with something in the middle of it, sort of. Something pinpointing it that draws it all together. And when it draws it all together, the more electricity they pull in, the more they're able to show them sound or move something. I think they're collecting energy, and they think they collect energy from anything from a plug to you. They collect heat, static, any type of electrical charges. They can pull them in and use them. I know some people go suddenly feel really weak, and they're like woozy. You know, something's drawing something from you.
Yeah.
So,
but water around the island, flowing water like that creates that magnetic field.
Yep, rocks rubbing against each other. It's minute charges, but if you got enough of it, it builds up. It gets bigger and bigger. And the island is limestone and quartz, which in paranormal, there's tons of theories with how that charges everything.
Yeah, those limestone can store that energy, and then it can be reused to help manifest spirits. So I was just reading. Could the island be a portal or some kind of a vortex with all that water swirling around it?
I think it's like a magnet. It's like maybe not even a magnet. I don't know how to exactly explain what it is. I don't think there's like an opening to the other side, like a big. I always think of portal. I think of like Stargate, some big circle thing that lights up and things go back and forth. I think it's just that the energy's right, the history's there. It's got the geology. The conditions are right for something to be there. They can draw the energy to manifest and do something. The history there goes back up to 8,000 years with Native Americans. There was death. There's been suicides, accidental death. There's been all the things that would go with anything. And I think that it just tends to be a spot where the conditions are right. So that's why it has so many different ghost stories. But then again, it's all theory.
The weather conditions being
Oh yeah, yeah,
can,
yeah.
can bring out ghosts.
I've seen some storms on that island that actually had to be fearing getting struck by lightning. Like too close for comfort. Like less than an eighth of a mile away. It hit one of the hotels. Everybody heard the explosion. It hit the transformer behind the hotel. It blew a hole through a wall in the hotel where the transformer got hit. And we were on tour during that storm. We kind of cut that tour short because the storm just rolled in. It rolled in, and it was dark at the time. It was October, so we could see the storm clouds on the horizon. We heard rumbles of thunder, but it was coming from an angle where we couldn't see it from the tour. And all of a sudden, it was getting worse and worse. The wind starts picking up, and then all of a sudden, it just unleashed. And we were almost done with the tour when it happened, but it hit Mission Point. Lightning hit Mission Point Resort, hit the transformer, knocked their power out, blew a hole through a wall. No one got hurt, thank God. And lightning hits the island a lot, hits the bridge about 12 times a year. So the weather and the wind up there, you've had hurricane force winds on the island coming through the straits. They've had 92-mile-an-hour winds. So it's definitely an anomaly for weather, geology. It's just so many different things.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening there. Now, Mackinac Island, it's one of Michigan's top tourist attractions. Most people are going to go for the fudge, the history, and the natural beauty, but you're going to go for those stories, the legends, and the tragic tales.
Yep.
Haunts of Michigan. It's your title of your two books, and also the title that you use for your touring system or your touring business that runs from May
until just late October, but not quite to Halloween. We run basically with the tourist season. We open when most of the hotels are opening up and everything, and we close when most of the hotels are closing.
Everybody needs to know you're wide open. You had a great business last year when a lot other people.
Yeah. There were a few stores that were closed for COVID, but really I think it was like 3 like gift shops. Most of the restaurants were open all year. Some of them had to shut down if they had a COVID case or whatever. But they reopened within 2 or 3 weeks of that time after everything was clear. They got the go ahead. But yeah, last year, other than masks and plexiglass everywhere, it wasn't much different from a normal season.
So did you get all the help you needed? I know you were looking for help.
We were really shorthanded last year. We turned away a lot of people last year. We were sold out almost every single night in July and August. I think we had 2 nights we didn't fill up. And this year we've got a few new people. So we're hoping we could not have to sell out everything and tell people, all right, tickets are all gone.
Right.
And but like I say, we always say, if you want to go, once our tickets go online, which is usually in April, get the date you want and the tour you want like quick, because we never know. Some of them sold out a month ahead. They're gone.
Yeah.
And we try to add tours if we can, but we're limited on staff. We can only have so many people, and they don't want to work every single night of the week, so we can only do so much.
It's about a 90-minute walking tour.
Give or take 90 minutes, easy walk, slow pace. We don't race around everywhere. It's pretty much wheelchair accessible. There's one spot where we'll go into a park, grass. You have to roll in the grass, or it's across the lawn in the park. And otherwise, it's no big hills. There's a couple little hills. They're not big. They're short. And most of it's on sidewalks and alleys. We have a dirt alley we go through. That was one of the murders on the island. There's a ghost story attached to. Well, there's been several murders and strange deaths on the island which have ghost stories attached to them. So
bring your EMF meters, your recorders.
Yeah, we're pet friendly. We allow people to bring dogs or other pets on the tour. We had a potbelly pig once. But yeah, dogs are really good because they pick up on things we don't. And we did have a dog go after something in the alley. that wasn't there. There was nothing there. Everybody saw there was nothing there, but the dog was wagging its tail and walking up to nothing,
Yeah,
like it was
that's a
being
good
pet
point.
by somebody, and there was nobody there.
Mary, you have dogs?
I don't. No.
You got to get some dogs and train them to hunt ghosts. That's what I wanted. I'm trying to train my bird to hunt ghosts. I'm not sure if he's going to make it or not.
Use him as like a translator of EVP instead of EVP. Parrot voice.
We're going over. You're going to lose your voice talking so much. You know the guy that wrote this book, William J. Konkolesky.
Oh yeah. Yep.
This is his new book, Experiencer 2. He was our last guest, so we give a shout out to him. I don't know if you know Reverend Robert Duchesne and Nicole. Do you know them?
Yeah. Yep.
They're kind of like Mythbusters, and that's what they're trying to do in their newer books is go back at some of these myths and find out the actual names, clarify some of the things that have been misquoted for years. So this thing like what happened with the drowning pool is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're
Yeah,
in.
I mean, the problem with Johnny Pool is we did put it on our tour for a little while. That's kind of where it got roots and took off with. It was a hearsay. It was something we talked about, but no one ever really took the part where it's only a legend. We have no proof,
Right,
that this ever happened. That gets dropped immediately everywhere it's been talked about. Yeah, I've talked about it. So
yeah. In entertainment purposes only. I used to include that in reports that I would give people because I don't want them selling their house.
Yeah.
Taking their kid in to the doctor to have his head checked out because of something that we put in a report. I think that's
right.
important. A lot of this is just conjecture. So much of it's rumor. But so upcoming, your thing is going to be, of course, starting in May, the tours.
Yep.
Tours, huh?
We haven't set our date yet, but it'll be within the first 2 weeks of May.
Mama
we
Mary,
open up.
You got upcoming.
There we go.
Yeah, stay tuned. Right around April 3rd is Paranormal XL's second anniversary. So we're going to do a live and a game show type thing with different paranormal groups. And we'll be giving away gifts and just having a lot of fun.
On this show, now that we're Zooming, Mary's in Hastings. I'm in Grand Rapids. Todd, where are you?
I'm in Rochester Hills right now, but I'll be going up to the island in about a month and a half, something like that.
So you're on the east side of the state. We're on the west side of the state. We hope that Mary and I are going to Zoom to the UK. We're gonna test the limits here. It's 5 hours difference time zone, so this is gonna be fun if we can make this happen. On your first book, I highlight everything in the books, but I highlighted some of the stuff that we talked about already. That and the massacre. One of the chapters was on a massacre where 70, I believe, Native American.
The number's not for sure, but yeah, there's been a lot more information that came out about that one, and I might do an update. I'm just getting into taking notes for a third book, but there is a lot more coming out about the history of that and what it is. I'm not going to butcher the name of the tribe right now. I know it, but I know I'll screw it up. So I'm not going to say it because I have to get better at saying the name of it. It starts with an A.
I think
they were very.
Yeah, I saw that name. Yeah, it was a long.
I'll butcher it. It's a tough one if you're not looking at it when you're saying it.
Right.
But
there are some Native American tribes you can mention though, because the Chippewa, Kewayden, is that one of them or not?
Probably.
Odawa?
If you hear a name that sounds Native American, it's the name of a city or something in Michigan or a lake. It's probably a tribe or some sort of a sect of a tribe. Huron,
Right.
Ontario, the Erie, the Fox, Sioux. I mean,
American Indian tribe. Right. There's several up there that the French fur traders ran into when they first arrived.
But the slaughter, if you want to hear really quick, I know one of the tribes, the name, they think it's the name that Mackinac is named after. It was the Mishlamacanago was the name of one of the tribes. The other one I can't pronounce. But the Mishlamacanago were a pretty private, kept to themselves, didn't interact with other tribes very much. Apparently, the way the story goes, they were on the island. That was where they lived. And they were not a warring tribe. They were kept to themselves. And they were kind of protected by, I believe it was one of the ones with the name I don't know how to pronounce unless it's sitting right in front of me. And I want to say it was Ojibwa.
Ojibwa, right, is another one.
Yep. I don't remember which tribe it was, but they protected them from other tribes, the warring tribes. They kind of looked after them to make sure they weren't getting slaughtered. Well, there was apparently, this is from a chief. There's only one account of the story on record. It's in a couple books that the chief wrote one book, and the other is just quoting him, same story. They went on a war party somewhere towards Wisconsin through the UP. The tribes that were protecting the Mishlamacanago. And when they were gone, I believe it was the Iroquois. It's Iroquois or Chippewa. I think it was the Iroquois. Came in and wiped the tribe on the island out. They slaughtered them all. Now, originally, the story, because actually this chief's information wasn't around. And then eventually one of his biographies or something came out, and this story was in it. No one had ever really heard a lot about it. And he passed away a long time ago, but it was a manuscript that never was published, and then eventually got published. But they came in, they wiped them out, and in the original book, we thought it was going to be French or British soldiers that did it, would wipe them out because they were trouble on the island. But it turned out it was another Native American tribe that wiped them out. 2 survivors walked backwards. It was in the winter, in the snow, crossed the ice into the Upper Peninsula and disappeared. They walked backwards, so they did the tracks if they were going to track them.
Sure.
They think they were coming to the island instead of leaving the island. So they disappeared, and no one ever heard anything else about them. Supposedly, there's rumor that they started a family. It was a man and a woman. They started a family somewhere in the UP and just did what they did. They kept themselves and kept their mouth shut. They didn't get into wars. They didn't do anything. They just lived out their lives somewhere in the UP. So the ghost story is, and this is one that actually I've had an experience with, is that those Native Americans who were slaughtered in the woods, and it's out kind of near the trash dump, sort of, and the golf course that's out in the middle of the island, and the Washkamo Golf Course, which is an old Scottish links course, and there is a horse arena out there and stables. It's in that area, but off in the woods is supposedly where they got slaughtered. I'm hiking the area looking for anything I can find. I know this is like 1,000 years ago or something like that this happened. It's a long time ago. I'm not going to probably find anything. But being who I am and I like to go hiking, I wanted to see. Maybe I'll find some proof of them. Something at all, anything, an arrowhead, anything. Didn't find anything. I was alone. It was May, and my cell phone battery was dying. There's nobody around. I'd seen 2 people in 5 hours of hiking. That's it. And I'm backing on, that means there's not that many people on the island at the time. So I'm out there in the woods, just looking around, walking, seeing if I see anything. And I started hearing it's Native American chanting. I've heard it before, and it was in the distance, but there's nothing around there that you would get. It's state park. It's forest. There's no settlements. There's no houses, there's no buildings, there's no groups of people, and I'd seen 2 people in 5 hours. I knew there was a group of people doing Native American chants in the middle of the woods, and it was getting closer, so it was moving, and I just said, I'm out of here. I don't know what that is, but it was just like the whole you know how you probably most people probably heard Native American
drunks to accompany that story.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I heard that, and I was like, my phone's almost dead. If I scream, no one's going to hear me scream. Nobody. There was no people around. And I was just like, it's probably a good idea to get back to town, get my phone charged up, and be safe because I was alone.
Well,
So.
vengeance is a big thing when it comes to the dead coming back.
Yeah.
It's unfinished
Yeah.
business. And I think
Unfinished business.
We give Native Americans plenty of reason to have some feelings like that.
Maybe I have Iroquois blood or something. They smelled
that's
it.
why you protect.
I don't know.
But the residents claim they see people running out in the woods, or Native Americans, even bloody ones, running. So yeah, that was one of them that stuck in my mind out of the first book. And fairies, but we don't really have time to get into fairies.
No, I could get into that for another hour.
Yeah, I had final thought as, you know, what is it about Michigan that attracts you in the paranormal? That was our original one before our guest canceled, and you filled in. Thanks a lot for doing that.
Sure. Oh, no problem.
Yeah, did you have an answer for that question? What is it about Michigan that you like that's related to the paranormal?
I think because there's so many different places that have been discovered but undiscovered too. All the trees that we have has to be more out there than just what meets the eye. It's vast, especially when you go up to the UP. Love the UP, but you could explore for hours. You never know what you're gonna find.
Weeks.
Yeah.
Right. Todd, I have to guess yours is going to be Mackinac Island is the big attraction when it comes to paranormal for Michigan, but maybe you have others.
Yeah, probably. I'm friends with the guys who do the USS and the naval destroyer from Vietnam in Bay City, so I'm there a lot with them. It's haunted.
You talk about ghost ships in your book.
Yep.
And another thing about Michigan is lighthouses. We have more lighthouses than anybody, and several of them are reported as being haunted, whether it's residual energy from these people have spent their whole lives taking care of this lighthouse. Some of them indicate that it's actual intelligent spirits.
Yeah, we have one that has ghost stories attached to it near Mackinac. It's not really near Mackinac, but it's in the Straits of Mackinac. It's on the other side of the bridge from the island. It's the Washouchets, and I'm afraid I'm saying it wrong, but the Washouchets Lighthouse, which is an old bell-towered, old style lighthouse. It's been abandoned for a long time, but one of the keepers there apparently, the story goes, is he went missing. The people who I believe were relieving him or something said that they believed he drank too much and may have wandered off the side of the it's in the middle of the water. It's not a land attached. You have to take a boat to get to it. They think he may have stupid off the side one night during a storm or something and went missing because he was just gone.
Yeah, the reason I do not report on lighthouses is I cannot pronounce half of the names.
I get you on that.
Oh yeah, but Michigan has so much to offer. We don't have castles like they have in the UK. We don't have Gettysburg, but we do have a lot of places that had war. Like
there's the Michigan Triangle,
right?
In Lake Michigan. There's been UFO. So I mean, yeah, Bill's probably talked a lot about that. There's one over the bridge.
Right here,
Mackinac Bridge had a sighting. I think it was in the 70s. They were actually going to scramble fighter jets for it.
Right.
So
he talked about that. Yeah, because we just had Bill on, so he talked about that. And Bigfoot and Dogman.
Dogman.
We're on the top.
I may have seen a Dogman. I may have seen Dogman. Maybe. I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm not sure what I saw. It could have been a coyote. It was a big coyote. It could have been a wolf, but the way it moved was not like a dog. I was near Cadillac, Michigan, coming down. I don't remember why I was up. I was up in Traverse City for something. I took a different route. I didn't want to go down 75, so I took another route down. And it wasn't close, but it was probably 300 yards up the road. It looked like roadkill. There was deer. It was a deer, as I saw it when I drove by it. But something was eating at it. I thought it was a bear at first, but because it was pretty good size. It was about the size of a full-grown black bear, maybe a little bit bigger. But I just thought, oh wow, I'm going to see a bear. I'd never seen a bear in the wild before that. I've seen them since, but before that, I'd never seen one in the wild. And I was like, oh wow. And there I saw it like jerk up, turn its head, it looked at the car, and then it took off into the woods. Now, when it's off, it was on four legs when it first turned around. And then when it started to go off into the brush on the side of the road, it didn't have its front legs on the ground. It wasn't walking completely upright, but it was definitely running on the back two legs, but it was really hunched over, and its front arms were like in front of it, like not being used. They were just sort of dangling. And I was like, oh my God. Now I'm sitting there going, do I stop and look? Because I might die.
Yeah.
So when I went by the roadkill, I slowed down, and it had been eaten away by crows, whatever this was. So it was pretty bad. It was torn apart. And I'm looking off in the brush in the woods, and I'm not getting out of my car, and I don't see it. Yeah. So, oh well. But it was something weird. It looked like, it didn't have a bear's head though. It looked like a wolf or a coyote head. Wow. The snout wasn't right for a bear, and it didn't have the right. It had real like wolf German Shepherdish ears. They were out. So bears are kind of like really low and curvy. So
yeah,
I don't know what I saw. I've talked to a few people who do Dogman. They said, yeah, it could have been a coyote or a wolf, but it also could have been a dogman.
We'll bring that up with Santana next time we talk with her.
Yeah.
She'll have some insights into that. But Michigan has so much to offer in spookiness because the whole UP is forest. Half of the Lower Peninsula is forest. You know, we have a lot of area for somebody like Dogman or Bigfoot to hang out. We have the
tons of room. UP. We went looking for a moose in the UP. We didn't know what we were going to find. We were desperately looking to find a moose.
Oh, yeah.
We were on logging trails. We were in places that we probably could have gotten stuck. No cell phone service at all where we were. We were just doing it like an amateur, like Bigfoot, but really we were looking to find a moose because they're up there. We looked for an entire day and didn't see a single moose. Now, moose, there's like 2,000 moose in the UP, and we were in their hot spot where they're supposed to be everywhere. We couldn't find them. You're trying to tell me there can't be some other animal we don't see that's a very small population up there? Oh, hell no. There easily could be something else up there.
Yeah, we have a lot of paranormal possibilities in this state. Well, it's inspirational thought, and then we're done. You'll be able to take care of yourself, drink some more orange juice, take care of that cold.
Yeah, got a little cold.
But my inspirational thought comes from Edgar Allan Poe. Poe says, from childhood's hour, I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring passions from a common spring. I could not awake my heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone. I think the message here is, we can be different. And I think our strength is in diversity. It's like, do you, be whoever you are. If that's different, so be it. Old Blue Eyes did it his way. Frank Sinatra did it his way. Elvis did it his way. Todd Clements is doing it his way. And we love you for that, Todd. Thanks a lot, buddy.
No problem. Thank you.
Mama Mary Bassett.
We'll see ya.
Peace out.
Peace.
I'll see ya.
Thanks,
Take
Todd.
care. Take care.